Hey guys, I might not have the best lighting in the world. I'm trying to sit facing the sun, but today I'm going to tell you a really weird story. It's about how a spider bite saved my life. Um so no, this is not clickbait. This is a true, real, actual story. Um So, a couple years ago, I don't remember the exact date, but roughly 2 years ago, um, I woke up one morning with a searing pain in the back of my thigh. I could not, or it was like the back of my calf. I could not stand. I could barely stand. Like, the pain hurt so bad. And, my dad took me to the urgent care center, which is literally right down the street from my house, fortunately. And they checked me out and they're like, oh, yeah, that's definitely a spider bite. But I was having other symptoms too. I was sweating and I had the shakes and I was extremely fatigued. And they said, okay, well, yeah, your leg's gonna swell up like that and get all red, but your other symptoms are kind of scaring us, so we're gonna send you to the hospital with a rush order to get seen immediately. And I was like, oh, Jesus. So, um, my dad took me to the ER, and I was panicking because they rushed me in real quick. They asked me a bunch of questions. They looked at my leg, which was getting worse. Like every hour, the pain just got worse and worse and worse. And um and they asked me a bunch of questions. And here's where things get a little controversial. And say what you want, but I had my reasons. Um, well, first of all, I've had severe anemia for years, like ever since I was like a kid. Um, but here's where things start getting controversial. Um, about a couple weeks prior, I had an abortion. I was really, my boyfriend was an absolute wreck. He was homeless. He was mentally ill. I'm mentally ill. And I was so poor. Like, so poor. I mean, my family had to choose whether they were going to get gasoline for the car, pay the bills, or have food. And I also have a history of health problems, and I knew I would probably either be in danger for myself or have a miscarriage anyway. But I had been having severe bleeding and cramping, which is really, really bad because I have severe anemia and I've had it since I was young. And I called Planned Parenthood and they're like, oh, yeah, don't worry about it. But I started having to use like overnight maxi pads, super fucking thick maxi pads, and then I was bleeding through those. So I literally had to wear adult diapers, and I was bleeding through those, and and Planned Parenthood, they just didn't give a shit. So getting back to me being in the hospital, I brought that up and they're like, okay, we're gonna run a bunch of different tests on you. And I'm like, okay. They did like MRIs, ultrasounds, and they came back and they told me, you have an infection in your uterus. There was a piece of tissue left over and you're on the verge of becoming septic. And on top of that, your anemia plus the amount of blood loss you've had, you could die. Like, between the infection and the anemia, you could die. and I was really scared. Um, they they gave me an emergency surgery to remove that um, piece of tissue that was causing me sepsis or potential sepsis, and they put me on multiple rounds of antibiotics to cure whatever infection was left in my uterus, as well as heal my bug bite. And I was in the hospital for 4 days. They had to give me two blood transfusions. Two blood transfusions. Um, I mean, yeah, it was bad. There were times where I would get the shakes and the sweats, and I was nauseous a lot. Um, I I was delirious. I remember the first day I was there, the first couple days I was there, I was delirious. I didn't know what I was really saying. I was just in a state of panic, and it was really really scary for me, especially knowing I had almost died. And if I had not gotten that bug bite, I wouldn't have ever gone to the doctor because Planned Parenthood told me I was okay. Even though I was bleeding like profusely, like scary amount, and I had these really bad cramps, they just kept telling me I was okay. And if I hadn't have gotten that bug bite, I would have died. Oh my god, is someone there? No, I don't think anyone's there. But no, I mean, that was such a scary experience for me, having to go through that. I mean, when I think about it still, I still get that uneasy, uncomfortable feeling. Because it was really hard for me. It was like one of the hardest things I've ever experienced. Um, Having been in the hospital for 4 days, being that delirious, having to have two blood transfusions and a surgery and be pumped with so much antibiotics that it literally killed off all the bacteria in my colon. Like, literally, it was so eye-opening, that experience. And when they but something interesting is, on my last day in the hospital, they let me go outside on the balcony, and because the whole entire time I was laying in that bed, I was just thinking how grateful I was to be alive. And on the last day of the hospital, they let me go on the balcony because I hadn't been outside in days, and they knew I was stable enough to walk. And I saw a man out on the porch, and we struck up a conversation, and I told him why I was in there, and he said he had been in there months with a heart infection. And then I thought to myself, holy shit, it can always get worse. I am so lucky that they were able to fix this problem on time and that there was a fix for it, compared to other people who spend months in the hospital with their life on the line, not knowing how much longer they're going to live. So it was a really eye-opening experience for me. And when I left the hospital, I profusely thanked all of my nurses and doctors, everyone who took care of me. I profusely thanked them over and over, and I was just like, you know, it meant a lot to me. What they did for me meant a lot for me. When I was in the hospital, my mom, who was still living in Oregon at the time, she had through the phone, paid for a cat stuffed animal, that I could cuddle with, because I wasn't at home with my cat. Um, and that was really nice. But when I left the hospital, I thanked all of my nurses and doctors, and I was just so grateful to be alive. And I mean, that's the extent of my story. And I'm tearing up. It was just such a bad time in my life, and I felt like it couldn't have come at a worse time in my life, because I had just broken up with a really dysfunctional person. I was in a new relationship, and literally, like, starting that relationship, it was like, oh, by the way, I'm pregnant. And then the next thing you know, he's in the hospital with me, morning and night. And that's pretty much how we started that relationship. So there you go. I'm not with that guy anymore. But yeah, so that was a very, very scary experience for me. But if it wasn't for that spider bite, I'd be dead. I'd literally be dead. And that's my story. I hope you watch and listen. See you in my next video. Bye.